Hello, Mr. Duncan here with another video welcoming you to Canada. In this video, we'll be learning about my favorite subject, food. In this class, we'll talk about basic meal conventions, eating out and some of the unique options available in the Greater Vancouver area, making your own food, especially at your homestay, nutrition and eating healthy, as well as etiquette. Firstly, we'll talk about some basic meal conventions. In Western culture, food is normally served in what are called courses. A course is just when new food is brought to the table. When you're eating out at a restaurant, or you're eating at home or your homestay, you might eat in 3 courses. The first course is called appetizers. These are sometimes called starters. And these are small dishes that you eat before eating your main meal. There are a lot of things that you can have as appetizers. Sometimes it's a bun with bread delivered to your table. Other times you have to order it. You could order fries to start. You could order a quesadilla. Sometimes you might even order a soup or a salad as an appetizer. The main meal is called the entree. Sometimes it's called the main course. And this is the big thing that you're eating. The last course is dessert. And this is something sweet, like cake or ice cream or fruit, that's served after the main meal. Sometimes it's served with coffee or tea. When it comes to appetizers, they're mostly optional. If you're not that hungry, you don't need to order an appetizer. And if you're not that hungry, you can even just order appetizers and not have a main course. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of options for appetizers, and we can't really talk about all of them. But it's anything small, and typically eaten with your hands. Unless it's a soup or a salad, then you need utensils for that. The main meal is not that complicated. It's typically served one meat with a few side dishes, 1 or 2. A side dish is anything that's on the side, like extra peas, maybe some garlic bread, some mashed potatoes. It's usually vegetables, but sometimes it can be a pasta. You might have a small amount of spaghetti or penne noodles beside your meat, like a chicken breast. Sometimes pasta is the only part of your meal, and there are no side dishes. But typically pasta is served with garlic bread. Usually they're served with one meat, the main dish or the main part of the dish, and side dishes. A side dish is typically a vegetable. It could be fries, mashed potatoes, carrots, Brussels sprouts, and sometimes it's not vegetables at all. Sometimes you can have spaghetti or penne noodles on the side. And sometimes with your entree, there are no side dishes at all, like a dish of spaghetti and meatballs. There's no side dish, but sometimes that's served with garlic bread. The last course is dessert, and this is entirely optional. Most of the time you will not eat a dessert unless other people are interested in it. Some of the typical desserts in Canada are cake, pastries, ice cream, or fruit. Next, we're going to talk about eating at home or your homestay. And this really depends on the arrangement or the relationship that you have at your homestay. Some homestays are very flexible. They'll let you have access to the fridge or the cupboards, and you can eat as you see fit. Some homestays are a little bit more strict. They'll prepare meals for you and expect you to only eat the meals. Sometimes they'll expect you to join them at the table, and this is in order to get to know you better, but also to help you learn English. Some of the things that you might want to talk to your homestay about are what food you're allowed to eat, when you're allowed to eat. Some of the things you might want to talk to your homestay about are what food you're allowed to eat, when you're allowed to eat, where you can store your own food or snacks, and some of the etiquette or the rules of the household that they expect you to follow. The first depends on the relationship. Again, some are more flexible, some are more strict. And if you're at a more strict household and they only want you to eat the meals that you prepare and you don't like that food, you'll need to have a polite but difficult conversation about organizing an option that works for you. A lot of Chinese students think that Western food is too bland. One problem is boiled vegetables. Western families will often boil vegetables, and this isn't normally that tasty to Chinese students. One thing that can help is to add a little bit of sugar or a little bit of salt and pepper to the boiled vegetables. This can make it taste a lot better. Part of how food works in Canada is you season it yourself. So if something is not to your taste, ask your homestay if there's any spices or sauces that you can borrow or use. If you can't organize a food option that works for you, you can ask your homestay if you can store food or snacks in the cupboard and the fridge, and you can prepare your own meals for yourself. If they do give you space, be sure to only use that space. Don't overcrowd the fridge or the cupboard with your own things. One important thing to keep in mind is when you're eating, to keep your area clean and to clean up after yourself. When you're done, you should take your dishes and either put them in the dishwasher or wash them yourself by hand. Sometimes if there's a dishwasher, families want you to rinse the dishes before you put them into the dishwasher. You'll want to talk to them about how to clean up and where to put the dishes. If you're making your own meals, make sure you know what time you're allowed to do this. The homestay family might want to use the kitchen at a certain time for cooking another meal. It's up to you to organize what works best. Some homestay families have what could be called a closing time, and they don't want you cooking food or eating food after 9 or 10 p.m. And this really depends on the arrangement you have. And this could be because they don't want the noise to keep them up, or they don't like the smell of food in the kitchen late at night before they fall asleep. Some things about etiquette. And this, again, depends on the homestay that you have. If the homestay is preparing a big meal for you, it's polite to offer to wash the dishes for them. If they're okay with you not washing your dishes, still make sure that you clean up after yourself. Sometimes, if it's a difficult meal, or if they want to help you learn how to cook and learn English, they might ask you to help them cook. And if they do, you want to make sure you wash your hands and you listen carefully to their instructions and be careful not to hurt yourself. If you don't have experience doing what the homestay is asking you, tell them that you don't feel comfortable cooking something. You might ask to do something else, like peeling or grating, and this depends on the relationship you have. Next, we'll talk about eating out or at a restaurant. And in the Greater Vancouver area, there's a lot of options for you to eat. You might be surprised that you're not that far from home when it comes to food. There are many different regional food dishes available here, such as sulong bao, char siu bao, bao zi, and dim sum. Some of the restaurants even have their menus in Chinese as well as English. And sometimes when you go to a restaurant, you can't even find English on some menus. But if you're feeling adventurous and and you want to try something different, there's a lot of options available. There's really good Thai food, Japanese food, Korean food. And if you wanted to try something other than Asian food, there's really good Middle Eastern food, Indian food, Italian food, French food, and even just regular Western fare. There are two types of restaurants that you'll be going to. There's those that are called fast food restaurants and those that are sit-down restaurants. A fast food restaurant is one where you need to leave quickly and you don't have that much time. And you go in, you get your food, and you can sit down, but mostly you take your food out with you. A fast food restaurant is good if you only have 15 to 20 minutes to eat. There's a lot of the same fast food restaurants that you might know from China, like McDonald's, KFC, and there's others that you might not be familiar with, like Subway or Fresh Slice. These kinds of restaurants, you usually go in, you look up top on the menu, and you order what you want. If you're confused, you can ask for advice from the cashier. There's usually no waiters that are there to serve you. If you go to a sit-down restaurant, this is when you're going to take more time, somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour. And when you go to a sit-down restaurant, usually you'll be served by a waiter, and you'll have individual menus where you get to choose what you want to eat. Like I said earlier, if you go to a Chinese restaurant, they'll usually be Chinese, so you don't need to worry. But if you go to another restaurant and you're not sure what to order, you can ask the waiter for some help or some suggestions. I'm really strong with English, and sometimes I don't even know what to eat or what's available on the menu. And I'll ask the waiter, what do you recommend? And they'll give me an option. And sometimes I'm being indecisive. I don't know how to come up with a decision. And I'll ask the waiter, which would they choose between the hamburger or some other dish? Going to a restaurant is a great opportunity to practice your English. You'll have to respond to questions. You'll have to ask questions. And it's usually pretty fun to go to a restaurant with your friends. There are a few things to keep in mind with Western-style restaurants. Chinese restaurants typically serve food where you order a dish and everyone at the table is expected to share. At a Western-style restaurant, everything is more individual. You order what you want to eat, and the other people order what they want to eat. But how you do it is entirely up to you. You might want to share. So for an appetizer, your group might order nachos. And that's what you eat first, and you share that. And then for the entree, you might order something that you share, or you might order something that you don't share. There's one piece of etiquette that's really important in North America, and that is tipping. And this is an amount, usually a percentage between 10 and 15% or higher, that you're expected to give on top of the cost of the meals. And tipping depends on the restaurant you're at. Typically, a fast food restaurant like McDonald's and KFC, you do not tip at. And at a sit-down restaurant, you tip. And the amount you tip depends on how good you think the service was. So if you think the service was only okay, you might leave 10%. But if you thought that the service was really good, you might leave 20% tip. When you're paying with card, it might be really easy. They might have a button that says tip, percentage, 10, 15, or 20, or put in your own amount that you like. If you're paying by cash, you might break out a calculator to do the math. But a good rule of thumb is for every $10 you've spent, if you want to leave 15% tip, you leave $1.50. And that's how I usually tip with cash. And then I'll round up if I think they did better service from this, and then it'll get to around 18%. What you tip is up to you. If you think there was a really good meal and the waiter or waitress did a really good job, you might want to give more. There are also some restaurants where they don't accept tips at all, and they'll usually tell you on the bill, or the waiter or waitress will tell you when you offer to give a tip. One last thing to keep in mind is if you go to a fast food restaurant and you're paying with card and it says, would you like to leave a tip, and it offers percentages at a sit-down restaurant, it's not customary to tip. But if you want to tip, you can. But if you're walking in and you're just grabbing something to go, you don't need to tip. Next, we'll talk about nutrition and eating healthy. You've probably heard about this topic in China, and there's just a few things that I'd like to add. There are foods that are healthy or good to eat, and there's other foods that are unhealthy. And it's sometimes hard to know what is healthy and what is not healthy. When you go to a restaurant, most restaurants won't tell you the nutritional information. So you'll have to decide or guess for yourself what is healthy and what is unhealthy. But when you go to the grocery store, there's a really helpful guide to tell you the information of the food that you're going to buy. And this is a nutrition label. On a nutrition label, it'll include information like the number of calories. A calorie is the amount of energy that you get from a food. And typically, and this depends on how much you weigh, if you're lighter, you might need to eat less. And if you're heavier, you might need to eat more. The nutrition label has a lot of important information for you, like calories. A calorie is an amount of energy that you get from the food. And it's important to watch the number of calories you eat, because if you eat too many calories, you'll gain weight. And also, you don't want to be eating too little calories, because then you're not getting the energy that you need. The amount of calories you need to eat depends on you. Some people need less calories, and some people need more. Girls typically need less calories than boys. They'll need anywhere between 1,500 and 1,750 calories, where guys might need anywhere between 1,750 calories to 2,250 calories. But if you're lighter or heavier than the average weight, you might need less or more calories throughout the day. Calories aren't the only important information that you get from the nutrition label. You can also get information like the number of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Fats are important to your diet, but you don't want too many. Same with carbohydrates. They're important. You get carbohydrates from things like wheat or rice, and even vegetables, but less so in vegetables. Protein is also important, and you get this mostly from meat, but you can also get protein from vegetables as well. It's important when you're looking at the nutrition label to make sure that it doesn't have too many calories or too much fat. The nutrition label has a lot of important information on it, such as the calories, and this is the amount of energy you need in the day. And you get calories from protein, fat, and carbohydrates. It's important to watch the number of calories you eat, because if you eat too many, you'll gain weight, and if you eat too little, you won't have the energy you need for the day. The number of calories you need to eat depends greatly on your weight and your body type. Some people need less calories, and some people need more calories. And this also depends on your gender. If you're female, you're going to probably need less calories than if you're male. Women typically need anywhere between 1,500 and 1,750 calories, where guys need more. somewhere between 1,750 and 2,250. And if you're lighter or heavier than the average, you'll need to adjust the amount of calories you eat accordingly. I'm pretty heavy. I'm above average weight. I'm 240 pounds. And this means that the amount of calories I need in the day is more than somebody who would be lighter. I wouldn't need 1,750 calories. I probably need 2,250 calories. When it comes to calories, where you get them from is important as well. You don't want to eat too many fats, especially saturated fat. But fats are important as well. You don't want to eat too little. You also don't want to eat too many carbohydrates, especially sugars. But carbohydrates are important as well, and you don't want too little. And you definitely need proteins. And you can get proteins from meat and vegetables. But it's important to make sure that you're eating enough protein, because too little protein, you won't get what you need to grow, especially as a teenager. Other information that's on the nutrition label are the vitamins. And these are small amounts of stuff that you need from food that are important for your health. These are things like vitamin A, B, C, and D. If you don't think you're getting enough vitamins, you might need a vitamin supplement. But if you're eating a lot of vegetables and fruits, you should be fine. It's important to eat a variety of food if you want to make sure you're getting enough vitamins. You don't get that many vitamins from bread or meat. So vegetables are really important for your vitamins. Another thing that you'll find on your nutrition label that's important is fiber. And fiber is important for helping you with digestive health. If you don't get enough fiber, you might have problems going to the washroom. Another thing that you want to pay attention to on your nutrition label is the serving size. Sometimes a package will say it's only 50 calories, but it's for one of the items in the package, and there might be 4. So you need to make sure that the package or the serving size are the same. So if there's 4 servings in one box of food, then you need to times 4 or multiply the number of calories and nutritional information that you've eaten. If you buy vegetables, you won't know the exact nutritional information, but a good rule of thumb is the more vegetables and fruits that you eat, the healthier you are eating. Usually you don't need to worry about vitamins, fiber, or eating correctly, getting the energy you need if you eat a lot of vegetables. Eating unhealthy is usually a problem when you only eat out and you eat fast food like McDonald's or KFC or a lot of pizza. Lastly, we'll talk about etiquette. We've talked a little bit about etiquette at the homestay, but we should also talk about etiquette or how to be polite when buying food. When you go to a grocery store and you're buying food or a market, in China, it might be expected or okay to haggle or bargain the price. In Canada, it's not polite and it's inappropriate to haggle or to bargain, to ask for a lower price. So when you go to a grocery store, the price that you'll pay is the price that's listed. You should not ask a manager or the cashier or anyone else working at the store if you can get a lower price. There's also some etiquette for eating. It's important that you wash your hands before you eat. And this is to prevent the spread of diseases or to prevent getting other people sick. It's also a good idea to wash your hands to make sure you don't get sick. Some important rules at both a restaurant and at your homestay are to not play around with your utensils. I'm guilty of this. I'll often play around with my dishes, my cup, or my utensils. But what happens is you either look like you're bored, or you can do what I do sometimes, and you can spill your drink, and that's embarrassing. What you used to eat depends on the restaurant you go to. If you're at a Western restaurant and you're given forks and a knife, you should eat with that. At a Chinese restaurant, you'll be given chopsticks. An important rule is to keep your area clean and to not shovel food in your mouth. And I do this too sometimes when I'm hungry, where I'll just pick the plate up and I'll eat it, especially if I'm eating with chopsticks, because I don't want to spill on myself. But this is typically impolite. So I'll only do this with my friends. Another good rule is to not use your hands to grab things. And the exception at Western style restaurants are for things that you have that have bread, like a hamburger, a sandwich, or even a bun that you add butter to, or garlic bread even. These are okay to use your hands, but for anything else, you should not. Another good rule is to not be on your phone. And again, I'm guilty of this sometimes. But remember, you're trying to engage with your friends, have fun, and maybe learn English. And you can't do that if you're staring down at your phone. You'll have plenty of time to check your WeChat messages or to play a video game after you're done eating. So put your phone in your pocket or off to the side, and don't always be on your phone. Plus, you don't want to get food or spill water on your phone, so just put it away. In general, if you're eating with your homestay, you should try to engage in conversation. And this isn't just to be polite, this is to help you learn English. So remember, you can learn a lot from your homestay. They might be really interesting people, but you don't know this if you're not trying to talk with them. And they might even want to learn some things in Chinese, so you can help them learn a new language and something about your culture. A lot of homestays, they're interested in having people because they want to learn more. They want to get to know people. So take the opportunity to tell them a little bit about yourself and to learn a little bit about them. So just to wrap things up, we learned about meal conventions and how meals are split into different courses: appetizers, entrees, and dessert. We also learned about eating at home or the homestay and how it's important to talk to your homestay to learn more about what they expect and what they think is polite. We also learned about eating out and a lot of the options you have available here in Canada. So go out and try a new restaurant, try a new food. Don't just eat some Chinese food, even though we have possibly the same regional food that you like at home. The other thing we talked about is nutrition. And a good rule of thumb is eat more vegetables, eat more fruits. And if you're not eating vegetables and fruits, you're probably not eating healthy. And then we also learned a little bit about etiquette. And the good thing about etiquette is most of the rules are similar to China. That is, except for bargaining. When you go to a grocery store or any store, you should not bargain. And another difference is that usually meals are shared at a Chinese restaurant when they're not often shared in a Western restaurant. Also, remember to wash your hands and engage in conversation. Get to know your homestay and don't be staring at your phone. I want to thank you all very much for today. Have a great day.